After a month-long teaser campaign, LG has finally announced the Optimus G, a very high-spec device that competes head-on with the Galaxy S3. A 4.7-inch screen has an HD Plus resolution, so an extra 48 pixels. The processor's quad-core at 1.5 gig and with 2 gigabytes of RAM. These phones really are mini computers, you know. There's a 13-megapixel camera with potentially gimmicky features like time catch shot and cheese shutter, which actually activates the shutter when you or the subject say the word cheese. I kid you not. There's LTE support plus the usual Bluetooth 4, Wi-Fi, AGPS, MHL and NFC. Wow, a lot of acronyms. The Optimus G has 32 gigabytes of mass memory and a 2100 mAh battery. In Phone Show 180, I featured the Motorola Razr M. Well, this is the Motorola Razr I, which is almost identical, but with an Intel processor inside, the first Android phone to have such. Welcome everyone to Jewellery Corner here on Deluxe TV. I'm Steve and I'm modelling the very latest premium fashion must-have from as little as £529 here in the budget model to a surprisingly affordable £699 for the top-end model. It features sparkly machined corners, a silky smooth aluminium back and a sapphire camera glass here in the corner. Want to be noticed while out and about at all the best parties? What you need is this, the iPhone 5. I'm only half joking actually, I'm not the first reviewer to refer to the iPhone 5 as jewellery. This is partly a huge compliment, of course. How many other phones could you say would stand apart from the competition in terms of materials, styling and, well, it has to be said, price? The iPhone 5 is a better smartphone than the 4S before it, but is it worthy of digging deeper into your pocket? You see, this jewellery factor also works the other way. For people who shun bling and flash for the sake of it, just about the only reason to get the iPhone 5 over its 4S predecessor is the stretched, larger 4-inch screen. In fact, we've already seen a bit of a backlash over the iPhone 5's use of aluminium for the sides and for the back, with scratches far too easy to put on, at least on the black model. This white one thankfully uses aluminium that's not painted to the same degree. I was also wanting to note that the iPhone 5 is very slippery. I dropped it 10 seconds after getting it out of the box. Think Nokia N8 slippery, also made of aluminium incidentally. And as a result, most people will be using their expensive iPhone 5s in a case, hopefully not like that one. Quite apart from hiding the bling factor, well, with more bling in that case, this also has the effect of preventing scratches, so I guess the materials point is somewhat moot after all. All of which means that I should treat the iPhone 5 on its own merits. In terms of what it can do, this is the best iPhone made yet. Having the 16:9-inch display makes it hugely better for watching videos either synced from iTunes or via the likes of Netflix or YouTube, or even captured on the very decent camera included here. The 5 is just a wonderful mobile video experience. The display is better technically too than the 4S, with the touch sensors now built into the display layer, so the device can be slightly thinner and also have a clearer display, around 30% clearer in sunshine by my reckoning. So what else is new and noteworthy? The switch from one proprietary cable and connector to another has annoyed just about everyone, but I do take Apple's point that the reversible lightning connector here is technically better than micro USB. Once I got over the lack of compatibility with the rest of the world, my main point is that Apple should be shipping adapters for both old-style 30-pin accessories and micro USB at nominal cost rather than inflated Apple Store prices. Yes, I know there's active electronics in each adapter, Apple, but that's your lookout. You were the one who created the new system in the first place, and you should help popularize it by at least helping people with interconnects to the rest of their digital world. Adapters to each existing standard should be half the current prices, and then I'll give Lightning a pass. Or, shock horror, freely license the blooming thing to other companies that want to embrace your new, better standard. This being Apple, we're talking top components, the best battery, the fastest processor, the best loudspeaker, the best camera, and so on. Taking them in order, the battery life wasn't quite as good as on the 4 and 4S, but you can't deny the blazing speed when web browsing, installing applications, crunching images, and so on. The mono loudspeaker's superb. Check this out. And the headphone side of things gets a boost too, with some rather nifty redesigned earbuds. Check these out. More comfortable and sounding a lot better than the ubiquitous old-style Apple earphones. Though not quite to the level of the best in-ear ones, which I prefer, which block out the outside sound far better. And when I say best camera, I'm excluding Nokia's camera specialist devices like the N8 and the 808 pure view shooting the show, of course. But within the 1/3 of an inch optical format sensor, small cameraed smartphone genre, SGS3, HTC One X, etc., the iPhone 5S, like the 4S before it, produces excellent photos in most light conditions, shown here, only really faltering in very low light, not unexpectedly. This is test video footage on the Apple iPhone 5. Looking at the autofocus, which seems to be somewhat unresponsive, you really do quite often have to wait quite a while or tap, as here, to bring things back into focus. So it's not quite as automatic as on other smartphone cameras. Also, everything's being shot at full 1080p resolution. There's no option to shoot in a space-saving lower resolution. In fact, there are no settings of any kind, this being Apple, and in Apple's infinite wisdom. Most of all, though, this is an Apple iPhone after all, which means it's naturally polarising. You'll love it or you'll rebel against it. My natural inclination is the latter, hating the proprietary accessories, the control Apple has over media and applications, the way you can't sideload things from other phones and computers directly, the design for dummies interface, the way you can't really have apps multitasking, the sheer cost of everything, and well, I'm up to 6 already, but you'll also notice that the iPhone in one form or another has featured in every single top 5 of mine for the last 3 years. You see, as Apple are fond of saying, it just works. For most people, most of the time, it does just work, with none of my special brand of geek knowledge needed whatsoever, which means that, cost apart, the iPhone is usually the phone I recommend to normal people who come inquiring. There's almost nothing to mess up in the interface, nothing that can break other than the hardware in this case, a bazillion application options to handle any requirement under the sun, great wireless media sharing facilities, and so on. There's LTE under the hood here, but it's only compatible with some LTE rollouts across the world. In the UK, it's just one major network supporting it. There's no NFC, which is a shame. Apple putting near-field communications in would have leapt the NFC industry forwards by at least a year. In the hand, the iPhone 5 feels light, almost dummy-like, and it's quite clearly alchemy of the highest order how something so fast and capacious can possibly be inside. Some kind of extra-dimensional technology hiding the battery away in the 5th dimension, perhaps. These being iPhones, the interface is massively well known. I don't need to go into apps or functions. You've probably got a few iOS 6 devices in your own home already, iPod Touches, iPads and so on. There have been some well-publicised criticisms over the new Apple Maps, but they're all 100% online and server-based, which means Apple can fix things at their end, hopefully quickly. I was pleased to see a standalone podcast application at last, complete with the option of auto-downloading new programs. It's not quite as autonomous as similar apps on Symbian or Android, but it's darn close. Well done, Apple. My huge question, given the uncertainty over the materials used, is should I recommend the iPhone 5 or suggest people grab the year-old 4S, which has performance that's not a million miles off and is more robust and quite a bit cheaper? Well, it's a nice question, but the Apple Store currently lists the 4S at only £80 cheaper, so buying new, it's best to go for the 5 and have the larger, better screen and better future-proofing. If you can live with second-hand, then a year-old iPhone 4S for just over half the price of the iPhone 5 does make a lot of sense if funds are tight. Or even a 4 for a third the cost of the 5. And remember again that they can all run almost exactly the same iOS 6 software. Money no object though. If I wanted an iPhone right now, I would plump for the new 5 definitely, probably the white one. It's a shame iOS doesn't use landscape mode much, but when it is needed, the new larger screen does take some beating. Oh yes, and to stop me dropping it or scratching it every day, I'd keep it in a protective case. Yes, 24/7.